So good morning. Yes, I am Leslie Texas, so I am Miss Texas. And I know I look a lot different in person than I do on TV, but this is being video recorded, so you can watch me on TV and I'll look just like this. I'm actually from Louisville, Kentucky, which gets a little confusing when your last name is Texas. But I am a consultant. I work around the country in lots of schools and districts, and I have to say I am a fan favorite in Texas. And I'm a little nervous about this presentation today, so I'm just going to put it out there. It's interesting. I've done hundreds of presentations. I've done keynote speeches, but I've never been limited to 7 minutes. So anybody who knows me knows it takes me 7 minutes to introduce myself. Also, the fact that this is going to be videotaped. That means that whatever I say for all time, there's going to be evidence. So I have to make sure that what I say is appropriate. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm not always known for being appropriate. The other part is sort of being stuck here behind the stage, because I'm more like a stand-up comedian than I am a professional, polished public speaker. So we're going to see how that goes, and I just want to say thank you. Probably took a minute just to do that, so I feel a little bit better. But I want to jump in and try to give you some substance in the next time that I have remaining. So what we're going to do today, we are going to do the do. We're going to go to the ER, and we're going to wonder, so what and who cares? So if you're ready, let's go ahead and do the do. So how many of you are familiar with the I do, we do, you do structure of gradual release? Okay, good, because this is participatory. I forgot to tell you that. So we got some hands out there, the ones who are at least willing to say that. I'm going to suggest that my first statement is going to say, if we're going to ask students to learn how to make meaning, is we need to flip that around and start with the you do first. So allow me to explain that a little bit further. So by asking students, first of all, we have to pick an authentic assignment, something that has some relevance and a problem worth solving. So once we give that to students, we need to give them a little bit of independent think time to see what sense that they can make for themselves. First of all, what patterns do they notice? What relationships do they see? And sometimes we have to start with a structure, because a lot of times, if your students were like mine, they like to play the blank piece of paper or the I don't know. Of course, they think IDK is a much more efficient way of saying that, but at the end of the day, they've sort of not been willing to take a risk to see what they see. So a structure I like to use, many of us have heard of the think, write, pair, share, think, pair, share. I'm going to suggest we have a think, write, pair, share, where we give some students just a little bit of time to write down what it is they're thinking during that independent time. And the way you can structure that is give them some things they can be writing about. First of all, what do you think the problem's asking? What do you think you might know about the problem that's related? And then maybe what questions do you have if you really have no idea how to get started? And I know that really helped me eliminate that whole blank piece of paper and give students confidence that, hey, I have something to bring to the table, because my belief is all new knowledge is based on some existing knowledge that you already have. So in order for you to continue with the pair share, you have to bring something to the table. So as students are doing the you part of this, you have an opportunity to walk around and listen in, not literally, but watch in and look and see what students are doing, so that you can go ahead and cue them to share things that they've actually come up with. And we can take their ideas into the we do, so that I can let them see that they're bringing a lot to the table before we even talk about this. And in that we do, I'm giving them confidence that the sense that you made is absolutely legitimate. And now I get an opportunity to do the I do, which is connect all of those things and make sure that it makes sense and leads into today's instruction. So now we've done the do. Let's flip that around. So let's go to the ER. Now, not literally. Please don't anyone have any health issues right now. But where do you go when you have a health issue? Okay, you're killing me here. You go to the ER, right? Well, I'm going to suggest when there's a crisis in the classroom, and not necessarily literally a crisis, but it doesn't work, the whole ER thing, unless we say there's a crisis. But when there's a crisis in the classroom, I suggest we go to the ER, which is the environment and the relationships that we're establishing. If we want students to engage in a productive struggle and we want them to take risks with us and we give them problems that are authentic, the only way they're going to do that is if we know and have a safe space for them to do so. The other thing about relationships is I have to know who they are, because when I'm selecting authentic problems, I mean problems that they can relate to, that they can bring something to the table, and that they're worth solving, not some contrived problem that has to do with mangoes when I don't even know what kind of fruit that is. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that the second part is go to the ER. Now, hopefully you're not asking yourself, so what, who cares? Because if you are, I've done a really lousy job in my first 4 minutes. But I'm going to talk about the so what, who cares. I'm kind of known for that, not because I have an attitude, which I sometimes do, because I think these are fair questions that many of our students come to us wondering. So in my classroom, and I now extend this in my consulting, it's always fair to say, so what, who cares, at any time during the work. Now, when I was in the classroom, I asked students not to say it in that terminology. So they would ask questions like, I'm not sure I really understand this, or where I'm going to use it, because my fear was they were going to go to the teacher next door and get in trouble because they might not be as cool as I am. Okay? So by having that so what, who cares, it gave my students ownership. But I have to be honest, I don't want those questions coming up. So I, in my planning, would pre-plan to make sure I was very explicit, that I was intentional, and all the problems and all of the scenarios I exposed them to were authentic, and they could see those connections. So the good news is, as I'm wrapping up in my last minute, when you're thinking about how do I build in structures and think about those authentic assignments that allow students to create meaning, I'm going to suggest you do the do, you go to the ER, and then you consider, is there really a so what, who cares? Whew, I think I did it.
Okay, team. We've got 3 minutes for questions. Please feel free to come to the mic.
Do I get 3 minutes per response? No, I don't. I'm just joking.
No.
It was worth a try. No one has questions? Nobody wants to ask, so what, who cares? Do I just have to stand here? Yes, ma'am. I think you have to go to the microphone. Make it easy, because I'm already nervous up here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So great information. Understand the big picture, practicality. Give us a sample of how we could apply this in the classroom.
Okay. I think the first sample, I'm probably going to go to the so what, who cares, is, well, and probably I should have pre-thought that that was going to be a really good question. But I'm going to say the most significance I've seen is in PLC work, and when we sit down and we select a problem or an assignment, again, it's not just math specific, but it's my favorite background, is first of all, thinking about that lens, that so what, who cares? Because if I can't answer that question before I begin thinking about how I'm going to instruct, it totally defines the way that I propose those questions. Because I sort of have two constructs. I like to sit down and develop questions for what do students do when they're stuck? How can they take ownership for themselves? So we actually pre-plan and write them down on a card that we can place at the student table, so when they're stuck, they actually have task-specific questions that will lead them forward. We also have a set of pre-planned questions for students we need to extend. What do I do when I actually get it? So these questions actually take you to the next level, not give you a whole other set of problems or a whole other scenario, but says, what if the constraints changed? How would you change your approach? So I'm not sure how, maybe I could have given you an apple problem or something, but at least that gives you a tool that's kind of what I think's been the most significant in my work.
Next question.
We got one here. You guys have good questions. This is the hardest part.
Okay, you spoke about, establishing that environment and relationship with the students. How do you define the new environment that's most efficient from the old standard environment of a classroom situation?
Thank you, and I think that kind of goes back to flipping that you do, we do, I do on its head, because I think all of our work as a teacher comes in before we get into the classroom. So today's environment should be all about the students. If you walk in and you don't know where the teacher is, and it's not chaos, but their students actually engaged. It's shifting that ownership. And I know for a lot of folks who started in this work years ago, that's hard to give up that control. And you certainly have to have structures in place that make it not be a free-for-all. The other thing is, I think we have to get to know our students. Stand in the hallways, talk about, they have a jersey on that's for a pro team or something. Do you just have the jersey on, or do you really support that team? Oh, you're in the band. Okay, great. I'm going to make sure I come out on Friday and watch the halftime performance. I know we don't have a lot of extra time, but when your students really know that you know who they are and you care who they are outside of your classroom, then they're going to go and take those risks and go to the end of the earth to make sure that you aren't disappointed in them.